Greetings, delegate. You are late.
Yes, my apologies. Protocol demands your credentials.
I do not deal through intermediaries.
Perhaps we should hear this.
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Grieves my heart to hear such hate between two brothers.
Squabbling like a gang of small children.
I know their minds. I will not let them lead you into a trap.
That would be very nice.
Do my ears deceive me?
Here come the drums!
Alpha Centauri, 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 Alpha Centauri.
Hello, that was Alpha Centauri's entry in the Interstellar Song Contest. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Pull to Open. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary beings, and hermaphrodite hexapods. My name is Earth. No, wait, I'm Chris Taylor from Earth. Sorry, I always get that mixed up.
And I'm Pete Paschal. I'm the chairman delegate from New Jersey. And
Whoa, the planet of New Jersey? They're a peaceful being?
Well, planet status is TBD. We're something. We're something over here. Today we're here to consider whether this podcast should be continue to be steeped in the old ways, or if we should join perhaps a federation of Doctor Who podcasters. I think that is the decision before us today.
Yes, whether to go forward into the light of the Federation or to go backwards into hate and anger and obscurity. I'm not sure, Pete. It's going to be a close vote. Yeah,
there's a lot to be said for just going it alone, though. And then you can make these little side deals with maybe just one other podcast, and it becomes very lucrative. And we cut off all the other ones for nefarious reasons, I assume.
Only if they spew green goo in their headsets. God, we're getting way too esoteric in this. We're getting way too deep, way too quickly.
Then we should, speaking of the old ways, we should talk about where we have been not at all recently.
Not at all recently.
It might be hard to remember, but this is a random podcast where we randomly bounce about the Doctor Who universe. This is a good opportunity to reintroduce ourselves to the galaxy.
Hi,
podcast listeners.
Hi, Galaxy. We're totally non-violent, and bad things don't happen here. No, we're a random podcast. Who we've been doing. You may have come to us through our hot takes on Shooting Up with Season 2. Just to increase the randomness, we're recording this between Wish World and the Reality War. You're going to hear this after the Reality War. We don't yet know that the Doctor's final terrifying fate is to be imprisoned and listen to Dugadoo for 1,000 years. We're still innocent of the ending of Reality War. So forgive us if we don't realize that Alpha Centauri was actually in the Reality War. That would be pretty wild.
Whoa, that'd be huge, man! And thank you for putting Dugadoo in my head. I really appreciate that. So we've been doing a lot of different things. So by going into the past, I think we're going to have to first reconcile with what we've been doing previously on Pull to Open.
Yeah, previously. I was just pulling up our previously so I could talk about our previously. And it turns out, wow, we were at Earthshock?
Was it? We were at some point. That was actually 3 stories ago. Yes.
Sorry.
Impressively.
I've forgotten how we do this random thing. I'm so hot from my hot takes.
Well, we jammed the randomizer for a while there. We just kind of cut it off from everything. We shut off its Wi-Fi connection, so it couldn't actually take us anywhere. And we decided to stay on course for the current season. But yes,
we landed our randomizer on the edge of a cliff, and it just fell off, and we had to have it retreat. Anyway, yes, Earthshock. 3 stories ago, we were in very, very somber mood with the death of Adric.
Podcast, which moved on to a different podcast about a certain experiment going on in the far future, perhaps not as far as this future we're talking about today. We were looking at what was going on in a big national park somewhere with some blokes running around and one Mr. Potato Head in the Sontaran experiment.
That was an experiment and a half. Go listen to that and understand why we are now proud sponsors of the Grav Bar exercise regimen. Yeah, really,
Well, they're proud
really,
sponsors of this podcast. Please use the code pull2open when you purchase your grab bar.
That's right.
And let them know we sent you.
That's right. Or don't. We don't necessarily want the Sontarans on our tail. But after the Sontaran experiment, we rocketed forward in a ship containing a pig, crash landed in the Thames, and it turned out it was all just a diversion in Aliens of London and World War III.
Yeah, speaking of potential sponsors and things being all about money, that was one of those incidents. Yeah, and that was a fun time. Not
That's
just farting aliens. There was a lot to talk about on that one. So, lest you think we're just going to go, yeah, this is the one with the farting aliens, and it sucks because of the farting aliens. That is not our conclusion in that one.
No, it's the one about selling all of the radioactive rocks on Earth as fuel, which now I should say we have only just passed through the May the 24th barrier. The world is still around, but if we are waiting to be exterminated, then do remember the potential for fuel for passing spaceships in the irradiated rocks around us.
Well, and all of that was fuel for the next step on our random journey. Now that we have reactivated all random circuits, we are finally come to the next thing, which is actually Season 9, Serial 2, The Curse of Peladon.
That's right. And if you're coming to this straight from our hot takes and from the hot takes on shooty seasons in general, you might think, oh, God, Doctor Who's gone too political. You might even say Doctor Who's gone too woke. Well, we are here to take you back to the very first time Doctor Who had representation for hermaphrodite hexapods.
And a little controversy over pronouns in that regard.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up later in the podcast, but this creature, what are its pronouns? We don't know. The Doctor says he.
It says it's.
But someone says he, and then it's voiced by a woman. We should say, if that eye looks familiar to you, it's not just Mike Wazowski. This eye was also in a Capaldi episode.
Was it?
Yes, Empress of Mars for like 2 seconds.
That's true. It appears on screen, I think. And I think it is the same voice, as I recall.
Sam Churchill, yes. Which is just phenomenal. I'm a newcomer to Alpha Centauri fandom, by the way, but I'm totally on the AC train.
I see your posters back there. You got that up in lieu of like your T-shirt's still in transit, right? It's still being shipped.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Obviously, I'm just, I got you. Yeah, promoting my my own website at the moment. But I'll get that. I'm waiting for the extra veiny version.
Yeah, well, we'll get there in terms of our commentary as well. But now I know you might have forgotten this, Chris. It was so long ago, the last time we did one of these, that there is a part of the podcast that we do need to start now. And that is the one where we get you in a hexapod suit and hold all of your arms down, all of your claws and whatever else, and then just feed emojis into your single eye.
What?
Until you can guess the Doctor Who title they represent. That's right. This is the Alpha Centauri flavored Whomoji challenge. So if I'll just pause for a second here and let you get into your suit.
There is danger to me personally. This is a barbaric planet.
It is indeed, but this is the old ways of Pull to Open. This is how we do it. Okay, I see your suit is not available either. We're just going to do this the regular way with you there with the Alpha Centauri in the background. But yeah, this is where I'm going to read out some emojis, and you will guess which Doctor Who's title they correspond to, and it is, of course, the Whomoji challenge.
Wow, yes. I think we just had that sting twice. Wow. Okay, just to, it's rules of good storytelling. You have to say it twice if, for the audience to really understand what's going on. That's right. The absolute terror is about to begin. Yeah, and yes, I'm ready. I cannot think of a single Doctor Who title other than Curse of Peladon, Interstellar Contest, or Empress of Mars. Yeah, just
all right. You've already declared you're ready. So I'm just going right into it. It's 5 emojis.
Yeah, do it.
First emoji a blue box.
Okay. Wonder what that could be.
Second emoji, a meteor, I think it is, sort of the shooting star.
Okay.
That one. The third emoji is a golf flag, a sort of a flag, golf flag on a hill.
Okay.
And the fourth emoji is a serpent. Not a serpent, it's a worm. Sorry, it's a worm. And then
I mean, this...
Go
ahead,
Go
sorry.
on.
Final emoji.
The fifth emoji is a space invader. All right, so here we go. I'm pasting that in the chat. Boom.
There are so many things that could be. I mean, it just... We were talking in our hot takes about how what Doctor Who does is it shuffles the deck of story elements. And other than the red flag, which is throwing up a bit of a red flag for me, like all of these things could be many, many things. So,
well, think about this. There's the flag is in a hole, so understand that. And
like a black hole?
Well, a hole, where do holes go somewhere because they're in the ground.
Tunnels.
All right,
tunnels
you're
under the ground. Curse of Peladon. Oh no, it's not. You wouldn't give us the Curse of Peladon.
Not the Curse of Peladon.
Damn it.
Tunnels do feature prominently in this story, though.
Tunnels to the future.
No. Tunnels
Lord.
feature prominently in this story.
Oh, tunnels feature prominently. I was going to say Tunnels to the Future sounds fun. I want to watch that episode. Tunnels feature. Oh god. I mean, that's like saying corridors feature.
Okay, I'll give you one more hint.
Yes.
So the first two emojis, the blue box and the meteor.
Yes.
Think about those going together somehow.
Okay, so the TARDIS is a meteor in this story. It smashes into something. I mean, now I'm thinking.
I didn't say that. You could be even a little more literal there.
I was going to Frontios. It is Frontios?
It's Frontios!
Oh, thank God.
You were just going to Frontios. You weren't guessing Frontios, I guess.
I was just going to that in my head of like the TARDIS being like a meteor smashing it or something smashing into the TARDIS. That's how the TARDIS
meteor
explodes.
smashes. Yeah, boom.
Yes. Oh, and the serpent is the tractate?
Sorry. Well, the worm. It's a worm.
It's a worm. Sorry.
Because they're bugs. They're kind of burrowing creatures.
The snail. I mean, they look totally like snails.
Yeah, they should have put a snail here. I get it. Yeah.
Yes. When I win the Whomoji challenge, by the way, I win the right to criticize your Whomoji.
Is there? There must be a snail emoji. I've never used it. I assume there is.
Yeah. Gotta be a gastropod in there somewhere.
Yeah. I think maybe the snail would have given it away too much. That's probably why JC17 Ace did not use that and used instead a worm. Thank you very much, JC17 Ace, for submitting this one in the group of Whomojis that you submitted on Patreon a while back. We've got one more from Ace, and that'll come at a future date. And we've got a few more others that came to us when we had our call early in the year, but consider this, everyone, a new call for Whomojis. This is a great way for you to interact with the show. All of our Whomojis are user submitted, and the best way to submit them is via the Apple Podcast app, via review. You can put your Whomoji in the title, you can put it in the body, put it wherever. We will see it. And if you do submit via review, you will go to the front of the line on these Whomojis.
That's right. You too can get me to critique your emoji as I did with JC17 Ace just there, longtime friend of the pod. So I think that's okay. But yes, join our family of gently critiquing each other's Whomoji titles in your review, and I look forward to critiquing you in a future episode.
All right, moving on. Folks, I know a lot of you listen on Spotify, and even more now that we've gotten through all of our hot takes of season 2. Well, do you know you can do more on Spotify? Not only can you rate or review the podcast itself, feel free to go in there and give us a star rating and say whatever you like about it. But you can vote in our polls. We put a poll in every single podcast, and it is all about rating the story that we're talking about. And we have a bunch of polls that we did in the previously stuff that we were just talking about that are now pretty much final. Although they're never final, to be honest with you. Because, we keep these polls open for a while now anyway.
We have a poll here for Earthshock that I believe is open for 65 million years.
They're going to be open so long, Chris, they will still be open when Doctor Who comes back.
Hey, wow. They'll be open for season 3?
They'll still be open when season 3 premieres, whenever that is.
That's incredible.
I can promise you that.
Wow. Well, let's take a look at the preliminary results from Earthshock. I think it's no surprise that this classic of companion death and cyber beings is popular. You rated it our top rating, a Viscount Banger. I said it was a hybrid. It was half Viscount Banger, half fixed point in time, as in just beyond rating, nostalgia's involved, etc., etc. And I got to say, if you make a coalition of the Viscount Banger and the fixed point in time, I think I've won in a landslide.
I'd say so. Yeah, that's fair. Well, like as I said, I almost started at a fixed point in time just because it's sort of transcendent for me, and I don't think I could really be super objective about it. But again, that's not really the goal. It's I think legitimately a banger, and a lot of people agreed. It was the first past the post. It was the most popular rating was the Viscount Banger for Earthshock with about 42%.
A very significant number there.
Yeah, and then a bunch of folks thought it was a good episode of Doctor Who, which is the Dalek. That's the Dalek rating, and that was about 25% of the vote. One person, a small percentage of people, around 8%, thought it was Professor Hater, which is cool, fine. That's actually not cool. I don't like that.
We learned something. Which I think is fair. After you listen to our podcast, you're like, oh wow, this Earthshock was good, but like, did it give the wrong lessons to the rest of 80s Who that you don't need to focus on things like plot, and you just like need the cool action and effects and stuff.
That was a fair observation, and I think it might not just be everyone's cup of tea, which I totally get. But yeah, like surprisingly, usually the fixed point in time doesn't get a lot of votes, but this time it did, and it also got about a quarter of them, around 25%. So I think no matter what, whether it's your cup of tea or not, you have to acknowledge it's such a pivotal episode of Doctor Who that many people remember and was highly influential.
Yes, and apologies to the Ogron, the Lady Cassandra, and the Zarbi, all of whom lost their deposit, as we say in British elections. No votes, nil point.
As they say in the Garden of the Ways.
I do. All right, well, if you want to support us and not just vote, you can contribute. You can follow us on all the socials. We're either Pull to Open or Pull to Open 63 on all of them. Pull to Open on TikTok. TikTok is still around, right, Pete?
The TikTok's still around and going strong now that we are all about Mr. Ring-a-Ding, our best ever TikTok video, which now has over 1 million views.
Wow.
A new record for us.
Still making my heart bells sing after all this time. You can also, if you're on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, hi YouTube, you get to see all the fun stuff we put in the background. Pete's got a nice warrior there. Very nice. And I, of course, have Alpha Centauri in the less veiny version. But you can also become a true companion, which is cool. That's fun. Which means you get the podcast a day early. Is that right, Pete? Can that possibly be true?
That can be true.
You get to rewrite time on some weeks.
We'll probably get it even earlier than that. Because now we're sort of back on our bi-weekly schedule. So you will definitely get it early. So it's definitely worth a support. Is that a verb?
If you
can do
support.
that,
throw us a support.
There you go. That's even better.
And if you're on Spotify, just go down to the bottom of the show notes. We've got a link. You can donate there. $1, $5, $10, just however many cups of coffee you think it's worth to hear me being tortured with the Whomoji challenge, or to hear our fabulous segment, which is coming up, that we open every bit of commentary with, where someone is tortured by having to describe the plot of the story that we're commenting on in a small amount of time, 30 seconds for every Classic Who episode. And since we've landed at the Curse of Peladon, which is 4 episodes, Pete, I'm going to ignore, by the way, that this many of these episodes were not transmitted due to a miners' strike, which normally we might have to dock you the 30 seconds for every episode that didn't reach the entire UK, but we're going to be nice because it's your turn, because it is your turn for the torture table on the segment that we call, what is it, Pete?
It's called Too Long Didn't Watch Too Long Doctor Who. It is TLDW, everybody.
That's right.
Yes, it is me today, despite strikes, despite the lack of trisilicate in my diet.
Yes. Wait one story and all the trisilicate will come along.
So, yep, I haven't done one of these in quite some time. We're not doing the regular segments on the quick takes, the hot takes. So I'm a little out of practice. I feel like I'm getting a little soft on this, and I've got to start working out in terms of summarizing plots in record time. More and more,
Indeed.
Yeah.
We need a Rocky montage sequence of you looking at episode summaries and then just repeating them back and while running up some steps.
I love it. Yeah, man. I just watched Rocky the other day. Yeah.
Perfect. You can summarize that. Or actually, I was going to say,
that'd be awesome.
You can either give us the Curse of Peladon in 2 minutes or sing Dugadoo for 2 minutes. Which?
All right, Curse of Peladon. We're doing this.
All right. Wow. Okay. No question.
Maybe I could do it to the tune of Dugadoo.
Yes.
So the Doctor and Joe do come through the cliffside, la 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 la. Okay.
Or to the tune of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, which also may have some relevance to the story coming up.
I've got it. I'll just put a shiny object in the YouTube audience's face. And yes, I already did summarize that plot. Okay, now let's get on with the commentary.
All right. Praise Agador. No, you can't fool me. I have anti-Time Lord hypnosis training. Yes, you are to give us the summary of the Curse of Peladon, whether or not it's sung to the tune of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I keep saying Jerry Mentleman. Sorry, Jerry.
It's a hologram. The Earth's been destroyed. It's fine.
Yes, reality warp. We don't know what happened. All right, you have 2 minutes. Are you ready, sir?
Yes.
All right, here we go with the official pull to open summary of the Curse of Peladon in 2 minutes, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the Doctor and Joe materialize on the planet Peladon because the Doctor thought he got the TARDIS working, and apparently he did. The TARDIS falls off the cliff. It's indestructible, though, so they go into this castle that's on this cliffside, and it's the capital of Peladon, and the king's there, and he's actually about to bring his planet into the Galactic Federation, and there's a bunch of delegates that are there on the planet to help negotiate that, but his high priest and his chancellor are very disagreeing about whether they should go into the Federation, and the high priest basically doesn't want to do that. But then the chancellor gets killed, and the high priest says, "Oh, it must be the Curse of Agador because these people, which is the creature that lives there, and it doesn't want us to go into the Federation." The Doctor impersonates the delegate from Earth, and Joe is a princess, and the king takes a liking to Joe, and so they get involved in the local politics here, and whether or not Peladon is going to be admitted into the Federation, or even if they want to. So there's a lot of sort of Shakespearean palace intrigue stuff happening in corridors, and also one of the delegates is the Ice Warriors. The Doctor suspects them. There's a couple others, one from Alpha Centauri, one from Arcturus, and they are trying to sort of figure out who is threatening the delegates and killed off the Chancellor. And what comes out is that it's actually the High Priest who is behind this, but he's actually been doing it secretly with the delegate from Arcturus. That Arcturus is killed, but the High Priest still tries his coup. But the Doctor has hypnotized the beast that the High Priest has been using to kill people into helping him. He kills the High Priest. So the Peladon will join the Federation. The Doctor and Joe then run away, get back into the TARDIS because the real delegate from Earth comes and the TARDIS dematerializes just as that person just looks at it, staring at it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you got to the end there. Close enough. I am going to deduct points for not mentioning the delegate from Alpha Centauri right here.
Didn't I? I thought I did really briefly. I thought I threw it in. I could be wrong. I was trying to, but I was also, obviously firing off a lot.
Yeah, I was a little concerned when you got around to the conversation that the king was having with his high priest and his chancellor at the very beginning, even before we see the TARDIS, and you got there at about 45 seconds. So, okay.
I was not as worried about that because, I realized I have to get that, and then kind of everything else I can kind of gloss over because it's just like I said, it's stuff and not that it's bad. It's just corridors and throne rooms and antechambers, conversations, politics, plotting, all great. It's just to go over that in detail would have been a 10-minute summary. So stuff happens.
Yes.
Yeah,
stuff happens. There's a battle with Grun.
Grun,
the guy, which the Doctor has. Yes, the King is powerless to prevent the battle with Grun. Did you mention that the Time Lords at the end, where the Doctor sort of?
That was the thing. That was as I was tripping over the real delegate from Earth, observing them leaving. I sort of remembered I wanted to come back to that. Yeah, and I kind of forgot. Or I forgot that I was because I was searching for something. What did I want to come back to? Yes, it's the Time Lords that have done all this. I mean, all of the Pertwee, travel, space-time travel prior to Three Doctors is Time Lord manipulations, with the exception of Inferno. It seems. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why you don't do your own travel, Doctor. You go into parallel universes, and things get a bit messy. But yeah, you said you'd forgotten it. I think the show had rather forgotten it until that dialogue was inserted in episode 4. I mean, you got to say, so it doesn't really bother us much here on Pull to Open because of watching things in random order. So we're taking things out of context, and that's why we're just going to brush past this in 5 seconds. But first, we must say that if you were watching this in order, it would be a bit weird. You're like, hang on, did the Doctor just overcome the whole Time Lord thing? Is he done with UNIT now? And hang on a second, he's got to get Jo back for her date. With Mike Yates.
Mike Yates. Oh man.
And you've got to say, you've got to say if it does become canon in the adventures lately that Mike Yates is gay, right? That he has a male partner.
I honestly don't know. I think so. Yes, my knowledge is either in the novels or in Big Finish that was confirmed, even though it is obviously a retcon.
We talked about this at Planet of Spiders. Our friend Dave Kitchen at the Doctor Who show confirmed it in comments on that. So that was the case. And I've got to say, if you didn't know that, then the fact that Jo is dolled up in something that is for Jo really covering her up a lot. I mean, this is one who thinks nothing of mini skirts to work, and now here she is in this very prim baby doll dress.
She still looks good. I mean, it's
she's
maybe
not showing off for Mike Yates. That's all I've got to say. She's not trying to be alluring to Mike Yates in the 20th century. She might be alluring to a medieval king. She looks fantastic. I
also think you can obviously fill in she's going out somewhere in London, right? So she's going to want to be covered up probably because the weather's pretty shitty. And
good point. Yes, she's got a date on Hinge with a tasty chef.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine. I again, like the whole the retconning of Yates and him being gay, even though there's not much, it's all kind of set up there, especially like as we said in Planet of Spiders, his relationship with Sarah and other sort of stuff going on is like, oh yeah, that kind of actually really tracks.
Yes, there was supposed to be a relationship with him, and this Terrence Dicks inserted that line because he was like, "Hang on, weren't we supposed to have a romance between Joe and Mike Yates?"
Yeah, exactly. And this is the season that probably has the most of that, right? There's even that bit, if you remember, in Day of the Daleks, where she brings some food to. It's not really romantic too much, but she brings some food to Benton. Yates pulls rank, and then he's all, I guess friendly, I would just say, with Joe, which is good. It's good little kind of supporting character banter. But you could argue that was a little bit of sort of a stair step towards something that they just never went to.
Yeah, seriously. And also, what, Joe, you're rewarding him for being an ass to Benton?
Well, he just sort of took this stuff. But regardless, I mean, I think the setup to this one is fine. Like the Doctor, here's the thing. He's been trying to fix the TARDIS for like 2 years at this point, and it's established that not only have the Time Lords disabled the TARDIS, they've actually removed some knowledge of time travel from the Doctor's head. So he's presumably done both, right? Like, in other words, he's fixed the TARDIS to a point where he thinks that he is bypassing whatever problems the Time Lords put on him, and he's taught himself somehow, filling in the gaps on his own, which you can kind of buy at this point, because again, it's been like 2 years. It's arguably earned if it's working. And then at the end, I actually don't even think you necessarily need it, other than to keep the structure that the Doctor's trapped on Earth. But the fact that he says like, "Oh, you think it's a coincidence that we were brought here right when there is this pivotal time for Peladon and the Galactic Federation," and it's kind of like, well, then how does that explain every other coincidence in pretty much every other episode you've ever had, right? Which they don't even bother to. So, I don't know if you really needed the Time Lord explanation,
right? We know, courtesy of the Doctor's wife, that the TARDIS, the spirit of the TARDIS, is taking the Doctor where he needs to go all the time. So, totally could have been her. Yeah. I guess Idris has removed from the Doctor's brain his own memory of all the times that she's taken him to places, and also he's a bit of if she's his wife, he's a bit of an abusive husband in this episode. The TARDIS just falls off a cliff, and he's just like, "Don't worry, Joe, it's indestructible."
But it is. I mean,
yeah, but it's a battered old Type 40. You never know what might go wrong next.
As we were just sort of alluding to in the Whomoji challenge, I mean, you get a strong enough meteor powered by gravitational bugs, you can get busted apart. But like a fall from a cliff, that seems just so conventional. I completely buy that. That's basically. It's not even rolling your ankle for the TARDIS. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, I stumbled slightly.
Well, clearly he remembers the Romans, which is the last time that we saw this happen. Both in our random order and and in show chronology, it was the last time this happened. And
then would happen in The Impossible Planet when it falls down the cliff or the chasm or whatever. So falls, no problem. TARDISes have been dealing with those since the universe was less than half its present size.
That's right. If its Mavity is engaged, it's fine. But if something else is smashing into it with the force of Mavity, then watch out.
So, as I kind of mentioned in the TLDW, the structure of this one it's very kind of like Shakespearean. It's kind of almost like a sort of a tight political thriller, or more of a whodunit, I guess. And
definitely modeled on The Hound of the Baskervilles. Which is why one of the original titles that Brian Hales, the writer, gave this was The Curse of the Peladons, to make it very clear that this was The Hound of the Baskervilles. And it's a very similar thing of you think it's a supernatural explanation for the murder, and this thing no, it turns out to be actual Agador.
Yeah, I can't remember if
yeah.
honestly in that first scene if you do see the beast a little bit, don't you? Even in that
do.
first murder. So
Yep.
you kind of already know on some level this is not probably a ghost.
Yep.
So you know sort of some you already sort of know a little bit more than the characters seemingly do.
And you know that if you have seen all those statues around the place,
Right.
they are disturbingly accurate. These very cartoonish statues that basically, I don't know if your head went here, Pete, but mine did. It's Alf.
I didn't know. I hadn't thought of Alf, but it is a little bit, I suppose. Yeah, I actually kind of like the design of Agador. I think it's sort of believably, it's believably formidable enough that I would. Oh, that's like a bear, and yes, it could easily kill
Yes.
you in seconds. Like this is a beast, and I like how they sort of paid some attention to the mask, and you don't really see it. You mostly see it in the caves. And the lighting is such that you're not sort of like often when the Doctor Who pulls out their monster and brings it into, say, the throne room or something well lit, basically a well lit set, it doesn't hold up that well. And I wouldn't say this like does incredibly well, but it does better than other things, like say the mandrels in what was that one called, Nightmare of Eden or something.
Yeah, with the
So,
big flares,
which once they were in well lit corridors, they're not really that scary. But this is still like being sold pretty well as like a beast that is just very strong. And so I actually kind of like the design. Oh yeah, I was going to say I wanted to say the wet nose look, complete with that was kind of like, oh, that's cute. You know, you could kind of want to like scratch behind its ears when
you
when
do, and it's. I mean, as courteous as the Doctor is throughout this episode, really gets into the role of playing the delegates from Earth, and just loves it. And he's very, very courtly as Pertwee. You can't necessarily imagine any other Doctor getting away with this, but he does. He gets to be
this is a very Pertwee script, I think. Like
Yes.
by this point, they're obviously writing for him, but yeah, there's even all the action.
He's also insulting Agador, who's like the basis for the religion on this planet throughout, and he's just by the end he's basically treating Agador as a pet dog, which is sort of, I mean, if an alien came to Earth or landed in the Vatican, shall we say, like perhaps during the choosing of a new pope, and was just like, oh yeah, your Christ figure, oh he's so cute, I think I'm going to have him wandering around as a dog. It would be like, what the hell? Are you're supposed to be a diplomat? No. So I adopted an Alpha Centauri voice there. Yeah. with my shock at this. So it's not necessarily, and it's a bit weird because this is a planet where the Agadors do exist. And Hepesh, the priest, has trapped one in the corridors under the palace that the king knows nothing about. But it's also like a god, and it's so it's like it's as if we based a religion on just like black bears, and then suddenly there was one. We run into
they're trying to emphasize sort of this primitive, it's a mishmash of sort of primitive stuff and philosophy and ideology and iconography that the Peladon world is trying to rise above, right? So taken as that in this sort of allegorical structure, I think it works, even though the scrutiny on any of these points is really like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Honestly, you feel like that. How is Peladon such a low-tech planet, seemingly, that it's going to join this galactic federation, right? There's no, like literally none, as far as I can tell, sign of technology on this planet. Like they're still using swords and torches and whatever else. And you kind of almost feel like this is being thrust upon them in some way, like for whatever reason, presumably their mineral wealth. They've become strategically important, and therefore they've had to become space aware because just so many other races are now interested in their resources. And now they're just kind of like figuring out what to do with that, which is actually really interesting. Like if you think about it. So I think all that kind of is a nice sort of scene setting for both what this world is in sort of one of these many future visions of Doctor Who, but also for the the political sort of background that is obviously at play here.
Yeah, so we should talk about that political background, and without getting into the history corner, that this happened at exactly the time that Britain was negotiating its entry into the common market, into the EEC that then was what would become the EU now, and Charles de Gaulle had said no throughout the 60s, and then Georges
Good de Gaulle
Pompidou,
impression right there.
thank you, no. To Britain entering, and then Georges Pompidou. I can't. He said oui. That was my Georges Pompidou impression. And Ted Heath, who was the Prime Minister of Britain, negotiated entry. I think a bit too much has been made of the connection, to be honest, because like to believe that that's the allegory at work here, you've got to believe that Britain sees itself as like this backwards medieval place. And we're going to be thoroughly enlightened by, joining the French and the Germans and the Italians. That was even the people who argued for joining the EEC. It was not necessarily like, oh, we're so backwards, and they're going to enlighten us.
I think for it to make sense that you have to do a big flattening of the politics. So to be clear, like I actually listened to the commentary on this one, and it included Barry Letts, Terrence Dix, Katie Manning, and I forget someone else. But the dialogue between Letts and Dix is very informative because they talked a bit about just the era broadly, and Letts is run as producer, and that they didn't do a lot of they didn't set out to do a lot of politics, like they except for the exception of the Green Death. But generally, it was just kind of whatever was in the air and the stuff they were getting from writers like Hales. And now Hales died in the late 70s. So he hasn't, to my knowledge, I don't know how many interviews he's given about this story specifically prior to that. I'm sure whatever was going on in local politics the world politics was on his mind. So it'd be hard to believe it didn't factor in. But that said, I think you have to sort of flatten it in the sense of like not taking the traditional old ways Hepesh type stuff going on here literally, and more like, okay, is the way forward joining our peers in the world as a more unified body and going forward in this, I guess in modern day you'd call it the globalist stance, or do we sort of withdraw into our own sort of quasi-isolationist or views that the old traditions and doing that, going it alone is the way to go. And that, that's fine. Like that's good. Cause that's age old, clearly. Cause that was happening in the 70s. It was happening in the 40s. It's happening today. This is an ongoing cyclical debate in the world.
One more thing that was happening, it was kind of prime time for this in the 70s. It was the era of the World Bank, right? And the IMF and this idea of like all the third world countries, developing world countries, had to like reform their economies if they wanted that sweet Western cash, and a lot of them ended up getting screwed over in the process. And so that was definitely in the news, in the air in the early 70s. But really, it's not politics. And I think that, I don't know if Terrence Dix copped to this on the commentary, but he was telling everyone at the time to watch the show that had taken Doctor Who's place during its break, I believe, which was Star Trek. And I don't know if you know the episode, Pete. I think it's called Babel.
Journey to Babel.
Journey to Babel, yeah. So the similarities between that, in which Kirk is like, helping to negotiate the entry of a world into the Federation, and this, where the Doctor helps negotiate the entry of a world into the Federation. Like there are distinct similarities, wouldn't you say?
You might even call the plagiaristic similarities.
No.
Hales is dead, so no. It is. They're so similar. You kind of need to almost check yourself, I guess. I've got certainly no evidence that Hales literally lifted this. He probably saw it and knowingly or unknowingly took elements of it. I will say something like a mining contract or deal or something, a place that is rich in resources and working something out with politics and war and other nefarious means, that's age old, right? Whatever that is. So that's not like, just because both of them have mining deals, like it could just as easily be an oil deal. You just wouldn't say oil in the far future, right? So you just could say something more general. So, I think that some of those parallels are just going to come out if you're doing a story like this. But yeah, it is pretty remarkable. Like, all this, like just calling it the Galactic Federation, even.
Yeah. Galactic, really, and things seem to be a bit weird in the Galactic Federation, and we can't go too long without talking about Alpha Centauri. We'll talk about the costume. We'll talk about the costume in a second. The costume's infamous. We'll get to why, as if you hadn't guessed. But first, let's talk about the fact that it's a pretty weird federation, because like half the members are like just named after their planet. Alpha Centauri and Arcturus. The Ice Warriors are not called Mars. The Earth Delegate is not called Earth. But the Alpha Centauri says that Earth is a distant and uninteresting planet, whereas Alpha Centauri is way, way further away from Arcturus. And also, like, Mars is right next door to Earth. So, like, Alpha Centauri, you're insulting Mars at the same time. So what is even going on here?
Yeah, the naming thing is a weird choice, but it bothers you for a minute and then you move on. And it's kind of fine because it constantly reminds you of, I guess, astronomy and the local neighborhood of Earth, which is, it's an interesting thing that they're all stars that are relatively close to Earth, right? So, which would kind of make sense, but it also seems to allude to this being early in the future, relatively, maybe, because, we've only gone a little bit out. I don't know. And yeah, it's weird that Alpha Centauri says Earth's a remote planet when we're literally neighbors. Yes. Like, what are you talking about?
And this, I've got to say, this Galactic Federation, for being non-violent, they're a bit sort of New Jersey Mafia-esque.
Dude, they're all packing.
Yeah,
like Arcturus has a gun built into his little Dalek-like tank, and
with which he destroys an urn.
Yeah,
which could have been like an ancient relic. And
the Ice Warriors just have a gun. There's like, there's a sword, go get the rifle. Like, wait a minute, there are no rules about this? And like, there's a lot of interesting, whether it's conscious or not, like differences to like how diplomacy is done on our planet. Like, diplomatic immunity has been a thing for a long time. The doctor takes one step in a temple that is off limits, and it's like, oh, you're sentenced to death. And it's like, wait a minute, that's like, I think that's going to cause some problems with whatever delegation is happening there. Like, that's not cool. And to the script's credit, they point out that it's totally not cool, and this is kind of like, you should not be doing this, Peladon. But it is weird that that's even a possibility to begin with. You'd think like no one would even go to Peladon if they knew that was possible.
You'd think they'd have sort of a protocol advisor down there. Yeah. If it is Alpha Centauri who's always fussing around like a civil servant, then they are not doing a very good job. But yeah, like maybe don't destroy sacred urns. In the original version of the script, by the way, in Brian Hell's script, that was a statue that Arcturus destroys with the laser beam, which is probably, given that all the statues we've seen are of Agador, that would be serious.
Yeah, it's like burning the Quran or something.
Yeah,
like, don't be doing that, man. Not cool.
Hupesh would have you in jail faster than you can think. So I got to give a shout out before we get into the costume, which is a hell of a good story. I want to give a shout out if you want to listen to the Target novelization of Curse of Peladon. First of all, you should. There are some excellent scenes. It's written by Brian Hales. There are some excellent scenes that are in the novelization that are not in the thing. One in which the Doctor impersonates Muhammad Ali.
Oh, wow.
Before his fight with Grun. He says, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and does his own version of the Ali shuffle, which I kind of really wanted to see on screen. It was disappointing that wasn't in. But you have two choices. There's Doctor Who and like Alien Worlds and Doctor Who and Tales of the TARDIS. You can't just search for Curse of Peladon on Spotify and get the audio book, but you have the option of John Pertwee who does the Tales of the TARDIS version, or gotta give him a shout out, the one, the only David Troughton.
Oh, yes.
Peladon in this narrates it in the Alien Worlds version, which I think is much better. Let's talk about before we segue to the to the interestingly shaped Alpha Centauri. Let's talk about David Troughton's shorts.
Are they shorts or is it a skirt? I couldn't quite tell.
They're shorts. They're blue shorts.
Okay, there's that.
I couldn't quite believe my eyes in the Curse of Peladon for a lot of reasons. It's a very, very beautiful story. But one of the ways in which it's beautiful is David Troughton. You cannot believe that this is the same guy who was the professor in Midnight.
Yeah, well, like 30 years in between appearances.
30 years in between. But he's hot. He was so hot that apparently Katie Manning not only fancied him, but she fancied him from afar, and apparently they dated later. But like they sort of missed their chance on set. But like you could see why she would be into. Like he's wearing shorts, bare thighs, and long boots. Bare thighs. I couldn't quite believe my eyes at those bare thighs. But he's well, like
I don't know. I don't know if she fell for him because of his costume, which is, shall we say, bold. But I do really like his performance here. Like, I mean, King Peladon, he's clearly new at this, relatively. Yep. He's naive, and he has been sheltered his whole existence. And he just really conveys the idea of a leader in over his head and doing his best. And really trying. Like, he really cares about both of his advisors, who are clearly mentors and father figures to him. And they both die by the end of the story, which is tragic for him, but also, you can see why this story sparked a lot of sequels. Like, you kind of want to know, like, this is not only Peladon's journey to join the Federation, but his personal journey of becoming his own man and his own leader, being the leader of his people. So, and I thought he did such a great job on that. And I also like it when his naivete runs into just social norms. Like, he's like asking Joe out right when he's threatening to execute the doctor. And she says it, and it's kind of a clunky line when she says it. But it is like that whole situation just felt like, I wouldn't say believable to me, but the whole like mouth agape, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, okay, like, speaking of people who might like need some advice or from Hinge dates or something, like, I don't know. Like, he needs an advisor for just talking to girls.
Yeah, right. I mean, Gen Z might say he's giving trust fund kid. For realsies, and he's not standing up to Hepesh. Hepesh is just running roughshod over him the whole time, even though he knows that he wants to see the new ways. So the novelization does add something a bit that I kind of wish I hadn't heard, which is that so he has a human mother, which we know from the show version, but we're told in the novelization that the human mother looks almost exactly like Joe. Which I say, don't go there. Don't even go anywhere near there. You do not even know where there is, Mr. Peladon.
Yep. Something I can't explain, but when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother.
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
All of that.
Well, I will say that the half human aspect, the human mother thing, is also brought up in Amok Time, the Star Trek episode.
Right.
It was on around this time, so I
on a roll here.
Brian Hales kind of mashed those up. But anyway, you're absolutely right. David Troughton is fantastic in this. But we can delay no longer. We have to talk about Alpha Centauri, and the fact that when the director Lenny Males was a very colorful Australian, shall we say, and it's interesting. Researching this in Doctor Who magazine over the years, they say his reaction to first seeing the Alpha Centauri costume was. The first one, like the old Doctor Who magazine was like, his complaints was that it appeared a little phallic. And then by like the 2010 version, it's like it looked a bit penile. And we can say what his actual words when he saw this costume were, cover your ears, kids. It looks like a fucking prick. And then so the costume department rushed to put this cape on, and now he said it looks like a fucking prick in a cape.
Yeah, it looks like something might have busted. No, what? I forget. So to be clear, I love the Curse of Peladon for this, right? Like
Yes.
this boldness of doing not just Alpha Centauri, but like all the aliens, and
Yes.
let's just go nuts a little bit. Like they're not just going to be humans. They're not just going to have face ridges or whatever Doctor Who would do. We're going to go full on like aliens, and we don't care what the budget is. Like we're just doing it, and so. I gotta say, like Alpha Centauri really kind of works. I mean, you know, you got that sort of the phallic imagery, but it's really like if you're a kid, because I remember watching this as a kid, it's like, oh, okay, it's weird. There's like an eye guy. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And a little bit scary because the eye is so big. Like it's like, what?
I heard this story before I saw Alpha Centauri, and when I saw Alpha Centauri, like if you're just listening on audio, folks, it's not what you're thinking. It's not as obvious as that. You might think, you might see this and think, actually, Mike Wazowski. You might look at this today and think Monsters Inc.
Right.
Might be a bit closer. And like Mike Wazowski, is really played for comedy. Like this, whether the appearance was intentional or not, I don't think it was. But like this is clearly one of the first comedy aliens in Doctor Who.
She acts a lot like, or I guess it acts a lot like C-3PO. You know, just kind of this really high-strung, like comic relief. I'm freaking out about everything, but at least. I would say Alpha is taken a little more seriously than C-3PO, even though it is kind of like we have to deal with it and sort of its point of view. But at times, Alpha Centauri sounds like the only sensible one.
Yep.
You know, she'll be like, "What are we doing here? No, this violent stuff is bad, and things are bad, and this is kind of a primitive planet, and we should probably just go because we can't interfere in local politics." Which is like, yeah, I guess so. But you know, then there's the reality of them being there and needing to do something. But I get that perspective.
Honestly, I want to see the version of the Curse of Peladon where Joe stays, actually marries Peladon, stays there, and
we'll get there.
And the Doctor takes Alpha Centauri off in the TARDIS, because I sort of see Alpha Centauri as like a proto-Nardole, who would just like land on every planet, just like, oh, it is too dangerous. We must go back. You said you would go back. I think that'd be fantastic. I would love to see that. And Alpha Centauri was apparently a big hit at the time. I can't not think of her as a she. She comes back for Monster of Peladon, right?
Right. Yep.
And then briefly for 3 seconds in Empress of Mars. And if you go and watch the video that they released at the time, in which Mark Gatiss, Stephen Moffat, and Peter Capaldi are like, I can't believe they let us do this. They were all like, we wanted Alpha Centauri back, and they actually went for it. But it is just, you only see the eye on the screen.
Right, yeah. It's not a full-on appearance. I'd love to see Alpha Centauri again. I'm sure they could realize that even better in real life. And again, the fact that she has a personality, and you know, forgive us all Alpha Centaurions and all hermaphrodite hexapods, that she just kind of slips out here and there.
It does. It does. And you got to say, well, on the hexapod point, we see her 6 limbs. Hexapod means 6 limbs, but we see her 6 limbs. 3 of them when they sheepishly vote yes at the end to like.
She get 3 votes.
The planet. 3 votes. But we see all 6 limbs, and then she's like shuffling away as if on feet. So we never see what's going on.
You know what they would do today? What I would love, this is why I honestly want to see it. You do kind of like a segue thing so that it's a very smooth movement, but you'd also essentially do like Jabba the Hutt, right? You'd be like kind of like a tail, which I guess you could argue is maybe a 7th appendage, but it's not a arm, so I think they could kind of get away with it. So I think that's kind of what you would do if you were doing it, unless you wanted to just cheat and give him legs and forget the hexapod thing ever happened.
How could we?
So I like Alpha Centauri. I think Arcturus is a little less imaginative. I mean, it's clearly based on a Dalek, but they didn't want to do a Dalek, so they just have this sort of brain in a jar, and it's got a gun,
green goo,
and it's squirting green goo, and it's got the modulator for the voice, and all that's fine. I also don't think it necessarily gives away that he's the bad guy, but it is like it's like the only one with a gun built in makes you a little little suspicious.
Yes, Chekhov's built-in gun.
But speaking of like the bad guy, the mislead, and the whodunit, I think it is super smart to bring back the Ice Warriors and do it in such a way where it's ambiguous whether they're good guys or bad guys, and then
ambiguous.
Clearly, they end up being the good guys, and only, or some of them anyway, or at least ending. They're only interested in peace, which gives the Doctor a chance to show his prejudice.
Yes,
because he is very much. You can't trust these guys, Joe.
Yeah,
trust me. I know the Ice Warriors. They're bad. And Joe gets to be one. It's a great episode for Joe, by the way.
Oh my God, so much agency.
Yeah, and she's the one like, I don't know, Doctor. They seem like they're only interested in peace. Like maybe you should give them a chance, and that ended up being really good advice. Yeah. And not only is it her sort of being wise there because of her lack of history with the Ice Warriors, she gets to do fun things with Sorg and be kind of like this person, going through corridors and hiding behind tapestries and finding stuff with them. They're kind of she becomes like this cop buddy trio almost with Sorg and Islier running around for like a couple episodes while the Doctor goes off in the caves and finds Agador. I thought it was fun. It was just, okay, everyone's doing interesting things.
Absolutely. Princess Jo of TARDIS. We haven't given her a full title. Apologies, Your Majesty, or Your Highness, Your Royal Highness. Sorry, Princess Jo of TARDIS. I don't know the proper form of address. But she steps into the role immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
she steps in by saying to the Doctor, present me to the hottie over there.
Yes, I don't work with intermediaries, which is just, yes... Belinda Chandra, you could learn a thing or two about how to be queen of your own planet from Joe Grant.
There you go. Nice. Right. So yeah, all of that's good. I will just say one more note in the Ice Warriors. They look really good in color. It's interesting to see that, like, we've done the Seeds of Death, and apparently they reused the costumes. They were still in really good shape.
Yes.
And this might be just enhancements for the Blu-ray because I watched it on the Blu-ray. But holy cow, like they're just all that green and the red eye shields on the Ice Lord, on Islier. It's just like, oh wow, okay. They're just by virtue of being in a room, they're making an entrance, which I thought was really cool.
We should say, I've got to say, the Curse of Peladon looks so much better than it has any right to. The colors are incredible. And I say the colors are incredible, even though all the aliens are green.
Right?
Like,
they kind of overuse the green. That's the other thing. They're all talk about little green men.
Yeah.
Large green men or large green appendages.
So it shouldn't work, but like the Peladon costume, the purple in the Peladon costumes, I want one. The amazing orange and white hair that all the Peladonians have.
You want one of those wigs?
Yeah.
They're a little out of control. They're all right.
But it just looks, something about the early 70s colors.
Yeah.
And the lighting. Remember when we went to Curse of Fang Rock and we were like, wow, the lighting makes this look, again, better than it has any right to look on a cheap set like that. But just, oh my God, they knew how to do lighting in those days. It's incredible. So movie-like.
Totally. So I got to get my at least one pick on the story.
Oh,
again, I think the story really works. You could pick at a lot of things in any story, but one thing that I always sort of bothered me about this one was, okay, so you have the fight to the death,
with Grun,
which goes on a while, but actually it's pretty good. The stunts between, and I'm sure it's not Pertwee, but there's I forget what the name of his stunt double, and I think Pertwee actually did climb down the rope. I read that. And then there's a big fight, and there's they alternate between the close-ups and the flips and everything else. It's actually not bad. But then at the end of it, the Doctor wins. Obviously, he's not going to kill Grun, and he doesn't. And then Arcturus is going to shoot him, and he tries to. Like, he pulls out the gun, and then there's this really bad editing. It's probably the worst part of the episode where Sorg shoots Arcturus before he can shoot the Doctor. It's really unclear what's going on. And then they literally, like, within a couple of seconds, they cut to the throne room where the Doctor explains what happened, which is just horrible because it's like, it was such a confusing moment that you actually need someone to explain it to you, which is kind of like an inherent fail for any visual medium. So it was too bad. But putting the editing aside, what was the plan there? Like Arcturus was just going to shoot the Doctor in front of all the witnesses, and they still think he's the official Earth delegate at this point. So, okay, you're just going to do that. That's murder. Like that kind of unmasks your entire evil plot, doesn't it? And then I think the only thing that makes sense, and by the way, we're still going to do if the evil plot succeeded. This isn't that right now, but the only thing that makes sense, I guess he would just shoot everybody.
Yep.
And just be like, we'll make up whatever story we want, which sounds pretty high risk, like in terms of what you're doing there just to get this mining deal done. Anyway, that's kind of a, I don't think it's a plot hole as much as it's a, like, holy cow, like in order to have a cliffhanger, you sure push that to the limit.
Yes, holy cow, indeed. A more profane version of that is allegedly, this is one of the Pertwee stories about Peladon, which you're like, I don't know if this is true. The director was upset with the people's reaction when Agador does enter the throne room, and said that they should basically be saying, holy effing cow, when Agador comes in. So they did. I think that's like, we've had this from more sources than Pertwee. I think the Pertwee edition is that, like, either there was a team of school children on set at the time, or a vicar had for some reason come in.
Sounds like Pertwee.
Right, which I just would be pretty if it were true. Wouldn't it be pretty to think so? Anyway,
it would be. But oh no, that is a question for the ages. But there are some other questions that we have about this episode, and those are, of course, the 4 questions to Doomsday.
Oh no, Doomsday!
First question: why did the randomizer take us here?
Well, I think the randomizer knew we were going to be taking this long break for season 2, and I think the connection between how Jo acts when she suddenly realizes she's quote unquote a princess, and how Belinda Chandra acts when she's a queen, like that definitely deserves some comparison there. And I sort of feel like the whole question of, like, this is kind of a fever dream plot, which is something that we just discussed in talking about Witch World and whether that made sense. All of it, it's just a bit weird and bizarre and loud and all over the place, and kind of, this is a good reminder that classic Who was just as had a lot of the features that we now ascribe to New Who, right? Including the don't be prejudiced, kind of political lesson that's kind of very clear in the Doctor's reaction to the Ice Warriors there, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that and a lot of other things get good room to stretch out in something like a classic Who serial with 4 25-minute episodes, so it doesn't sort of feel forced upon you. And that's, I think, a good point, because I had the same sort of reaction. Usually we link the current story we're talking about with sort of our recent random stories, but because season 2 is so fresh in our minds, I thought of that too in a similar way. Like, I felt like, you mentioned Wish World, and if you think about a lot of these New Who or current New Who episodes that just really keep raising the stakes, particularly for season finales and stuff. Not that this one is for Curse of Peladon, but I really like that the stakes here are relatively tight and lower, right? Even though we're talking about a galactic federation, we're talking about really one planet's role in it, and whether or not it's going to, take this path towards supposedly enlightenment and bridging itself with its peers in the universe. It's really just that, and they boil it down to sort of these personal relationships between the king and his advisors, and the king and Jo, and the Doctor and Jo, and the delegates. You don't need to have cosmic space-time continuum, everything threatened, to have a really engaging story that really feels personal. I mean, that was kind of what I took from it. But the other thing I would just say to bridge. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that in randomizer terms, we just came here straight from Aliens in London, World War III. Another sort of question about a primitive species, as it were, discovering that they're not alone in the universe. This time it's us, and also more green aliens, and an evil alien plot. In collab. Well, I guess they're not in collaboration in that one. But yeah, comedy aliens. Right. It didn't just start with with the farting aliens of Aliens in London World War III. Like this is comedy, right? Alpha Centauri is comedy.
Comedy green aliens. Oh, could you imagine if the Slitheen impersonated Alpha Centauri? You know what I mean? That would be funny if like Alpha Centauri just starts farting in some new appearance, and it's like, oh, they're not in a human suit. It's and the glow thing happens, and it comes out of the Alpha Centauri suit.
What was that? Was that my dog? I don't know. Yes.
But the other sort of thing to link it to our random journey, if you remember in Earthshock, the Doctor's constantly sort of taken prisoner, and the fact that he calls himself the Doctor and maybe even claims to be a Time Lord or whatever doesn't help at all. Like he impersonates someone here, and everything's fine. He's just, you're just going to be that. And I feel like once he had a chance to reflect post-Time War, he realized, you know what? It's usually better if I'm just someone official, so I'm just going to carry around this psychic paper with me everywhere because that just is going to work out better.
Yep, and I love, by the way, that Jo calls him out on this, and this that might be my favorite moment of the Curse of Peladon is the fact that she's like, "Oh, come on, you love it, you love cosplaying as a diplomat. Come on."
That was an awesome convo. My daughter, when we were watching this together, Grace said, "Oh, that's such a new Who convo." And I thought, that's right. It's like a little banter between the Doctor and the companion. They're just getting a little too into your role. Or you love it too. It's like, It's like you can definitely imagine Godwa and Belinda and just having a little back. I'm sure they have. If I just can't think of the right line right now.
Absolutely. And they
moving on
for cosplay. Yes.
Let's go to question 2 in the 4 questions, which is, what if the evil plot had succeeded?
Well, you just outlined the evil plot where, what Arcturus's side of the evil plot was. Traditionally, in What If the Evil Plot had succeeded, we go to the last possible point it could succeed, which is, with this, you've got to go with Hepesh's rebellion, which...
Yes.
And I have to say, this was the downside of listening to the Target novelization first, because they make Hepesh's whole rebellion sound so epic, with huge battles, that when you actually see it on the screen, it's a couple of guys with swords just rushing the throne room, and apparently one of them manages to capture the king. So I guess Hepesh. Or maybe, for the plot to succeed, the Doctor isn't able to control Agador, and Agador goes for the king instead of Hepesh. Maybe.
I thought of that too. So yeah, absolutely. And this is hardly the only story where this is the case, where it's very allegorical. Like everything that matters to this planet, or even in this planet, seems to be happening in one castle somewhere, right? So, they talk about civil war when it's really just a bunch of guys in one throne room fighting. And you kind of, whether it's truly just that, or we're meant to project to the entire planet, like that's up to your personal taste. You're just not supposed to think about it that much. And so to your point, yes, I think because so much depends on the flip where Hepesh is killed by Agador, because he's seemingly won until the Doctor comes in there with Agador. And then he's like, oh no, I control this beast, go kill the Doctor, and then it decides not to and kills Hepesh instead. And that act alone is like, oh, rebellion over, your leader's gone, we've cut the head off this thing, it's over. And so you have to assume that doesn't happen. And so instead of it, I was thinking it actually works. That is, like, Hepesh's control over Agador is greater than the Doctor's, kills the Doctor, presumably he would regenerate to Tom Baker. But in that time, Hepesh will force all the delegates off the planet. And then he essentially takes over, and Arcturus is dead at this point, but he could either restore some connection with Arcturus or just find some other deal he wants to make with whoever.
Yeah, a very dark timeline unfolds for Peladon from that point forward. But yeah, they don't join the Galactic Federation. They don't get to enter a song into the Interstellar Song Contest.
Yep.
Tourists from the planet of Duggadoo do not come and visit. The whole economy goes south.
Yeah, well, you could imagine that maybe they make some deal, like, and it becomes the corporation of the future. Like not Peladon specifically, but this whole idea of we're going to do mining rights, and that's going to somehow be more lucrative, and we don't care what happens to local economies or federations. That sort of just rotten to the core mentality around commerce seems to be kind of what the corporation's all based on. But
right.
I don't know. That's a little speculative. Not that Doctor Who fans have ever speculated about anything before.
That never happens when we dream up evil plots. So, well, I guess we'd find out if the Doctor does regenerate after being chewed by a giant bear, by a giant Alf. You gotta think that, I mean, that Agador, it's a pretty sharp teeth. I will also say that the original, in the script, Pertwee was supposed to say Om Padme Om in
the lullaby?
Agador. Yeah, instead of the lullaby, they take the Venusian lullaby from the demons,
yep.
Is it? And he sets it to the tune of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. What he was supposed to say in the script, because Doctor Who apparently was full of Buddhists at the time, not just Barry Letts. He's just supposed to say Om Padme Om, and that calms the savage beast. So maybe in the evil plot succeeding, that's what he says. But Agador just not minded to be a Buddhist, so doesn't really chill out at that point.
I'll just say, if you're a Doctor Who fan if you have hummed this tune more to the Venusian lullaby in your life than you have to God Yes Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. That's the test. If you do Arun Arun Arun, if you found yourself doing that more often, yep, you might be a Doctor Who fan.
Oh my God, I really do want to get one of those devices that the Doctor has, please.
I know.
BBC licensing. I want to see if I can hypnotize people with it.
Pick it up at LI Who or Gallifrey Wonders. I'm sure someone's got one. And
I've got to say, this
tables are always such a good deal.
One more reason why the randomizer might have taken us here. This is a bit of a convoluted one. The original name of Omega in the Three Doctors was supposed to be Om, right? As an Om, as a same spelling, because it was Who upside down. Om Padme Om, the thing he was supposed to say in Agador. That's my very, very bizarre connection to why the randomizer would want us to tell us that Omega's back, because of course it would use up both of its Omega shots.
Oh man, it's all coming together, but we got to get something else to come together, and that is a certain companion that may not be seen on screen in this adventure, because we're going to find out where is the Clara Splinter. Alrighty, so
Oswald, splintered in time at the end of the name of the Doctor, is somewhere in the background of every Doctor Who story. Where is she, Pete, in Curse of Peladon?
It's been a long time. Since we've had a little preamble. Okay, so not a lot of ladies in this one, but and that's not hardly unusual for Classic Who. I would think that King Peladon is a little, even given his naivete, a little blissfully unaware of what's going on in his own palace, right? That he doesn't it doesn't seem to be even aware that there are caves or secret doors, which, come on, you were a kid once in this place, right? Surely you were like looking for secret doors all over the place. It's just such a kid
behind a tapestry. It's behind a tapestry, and Grun leaves a stone out for the Doctor to follow at one point when he's leading the Doctor to the temple.
You kind of wonder, how could you not have seen this? So I have to think it's kind of echoing Governess Clara, where it's like you have Peladon Clara who helps raise the boy, but she's really like Hepesh's servant or what have you, or like just in his thrall. And I don't like this, because then she's kind of working for Hepesh, but still she's kind of bad. But someone's got to be keeping him blissfully unaware of what's going on for real in this place. And I just think Clara would be distracting enough for a young man that she'd just take her at her word.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I had, is this thought that she just shows up as a a very attractive palace servant. Anytime Peladon gets close to that entrance to the caves, anytime he gets close to that particular tapestry, it's like, oh, Your Majesty, okay, I just drew you a bath. Come this way. Every single time. It's like a bit Truman Show. But I also got to say, like, we've got to account for the fact that the Time Lords, for some reason, think that it's important that the Doctor goes here. So I think it's time, once again, to welcome Time Lady Clara, who's figured out that, and I think this is true in a bit of some of the spin-offs, right? They realize that this is like a crux moment. And it's actually, I think they realize that the crux point is Alpha Centauri dies if the Doctor doesn't intervene here. And that's what brings on war with the Galactic Federation. So she's there to save Alpha Centauri's life at several points. And maybe one of those things is just making sure that Alpha Centauri is extra anxious all the time about everything. So I like to think that there is an Alpha Centauri hermaphrodite hexapod version of Clara as well, working in conjunction with Time Lady Clara, to make sure that Alpha Centauri is just freaked out all the time about everything. Like, she's just constantly like, oh my God, and did you know, like, and constantly showing scary murder stories. So as soon as there is a murder in the castle, as soon as Torbis is murdered, she's like, oh my God, I'm in danger. Or basically shows her lots of Agatha Christie.
Yeah,
like, it's never just one murder.
Maybe it's even, you don't even have to have her be an Alpha Centauri person. Maybe she's just sort of they're pen pals in the Galactic Federation House of Delegates or what have you, right? And they just sort of took to each other, and she just constantly sharing with her all these horrible stories about what has happened to certain delegates on certain planets, and you've really got to protect yourself and be cool, and then minor things might seem minor, but they're really major, and just keep freaking out about stuff and make sure you're on top of it.
She's actually really anti-Peladonian. She's like totally racist about Peladon. And she's like, oh, you don't want to. Oh, they're so primitive. Oh my God, you will so
barbarism. They have to be elevated from barbarism.
Yeah,
a little bit of a elitist thinking there, Alpha Centauri.
Yes. Well, Jo, again, another great moment for Jo, where she's like, elevated for whom, or like the sum of that question of like, is that progress? Are you sure? Again, great episode for Jo.
Absolutely. We are going to now move on to the final question, but not before I tell you all about our newsletter, which you can subscribe to at pulltoopen.net. We summarize all of our notes for you. There's always a bunch of things in them that we don't get to, so it's a great thing to subscribe to for fresh content. And also another great way to support the podcast, in addition to follow us on the socials at Pull to Open 63 on most social networks. And now we have time to go to the final question, the ultimate question, the only question that matters for the Curse of Peladon. What did we think of this story? The Pull to Open rating system has 7 ratings. There's the Dalek, which we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. There's the Ogron, which we give to a irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. There's the Professor Hater, which we give to a not so great episode, but hey, at least they tried something. There's the Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a show beyond rating, usually for reasons of nostalgia. The Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but hey, at least it looks good. And the Zarbi, a story that is so bad, it's actually kind of good.
Well, for my answer to this question, Pete, I would like to draw your attention to a ship now landing from the Galactic Federation. We can be sure that this is a Federation delegate. It is a hybrid species. But no less a member of the Federation. I don't want you to think when you hear the name of this species, you might think, "Oh, I didn't like the Curse of Peladon." But no, she is now emerging from the ship. This is why, by the way, the Earth delegate was so late. The ship was stacked ahead in orbit, but she is emerging now. She used to be just a lady, but she is now a princess. May I present to you, Your Majesty, Princess Cassandra of Zabi.
Whoa.
Yes, this is
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, Lady Cassandra, it looks amazing. Again, like I said, better than it has any right to look. The colors are so beautiful in this. Like the shade, the lighting, the shadows, it's all just extraordinary. I would totally watch this again just for the visuals. And then the Zabi, like I laughed so hard in so many elements of this. Like it's no fault to Doomsday in that regard. I'll say that, but still, like, and we're sort of intended. It's sort of intended, right? A bit of a comedy alien vibe, right? It just there are elements of this that are definitely so bad it's good, or like a Zabi is sort of like, let's not denigrate the Zabis. It's kind of one of the reasons we watch Doctor Who, right?
Yeah, man, bring back those dancer legs with ant tops. I love it.
Yeah,
I'd be into it.
So there we go. Princess Cassandra of Zabi is my official rating.
Cool. I wonder if we've ever had a hybrid like that before. I don't think we have. Of course, the Zarbi's a relatively new rating. Okay, yeah, I think this is just very good Doctor Who. It's what I would call a Dalek. It's a very competent Dalek. It's great looking, as you alluded to in the Cassandra rating. I think it's well plotted and paced. There's so many old Doctor Who episodes where you think this is just padding and they don't need to do this stuff. And I didn't feel that way here. I'm sure if I really nitpicked episode here or there, they'd probably be like, oh, you could do without that scene. There's always stuff like that. But this definitely didn't feel long. And it had lots of fun stuff, like we identified with the Doctor and Joe getting into their roles and just everything with Alpha Centauri and the Ice Warriors. And it just has a good sort of politically flavored background to it. Like, there's a lot you can get out of the canvas they're painting and, interpret it in whatever may be happening in the world right now with this background of just sort of getting into like a planet or a country or whatever going to whether they want to withdraw or be enlightened, right?
Facing
out,
so
get your mind working.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of themes of that. So yeah, just really good Doctor Who. Go. I mean, go Peladon.
You go, Peladon. I mean, I've got to say, there were some points in this where I was thinking, is this a Viscount banger? Like, I was almost going to go further. But
me too.
I think that there are just so many plot holes here, so many inconsistencies that I can't give it the Dalek. But I think, like,
the banger.
Dalek.
The Dalek. You didn't give it the bunk. Yeah.
I can't really go in that direction. It's just like too many plot problems for me. And
I just don't think it stands up that well to repeat viewing. I mean, there's the whole whodunit aspect of it, and I think as interesting as the background is, it's not quite precise enough to get to something that really hits you. At the same time, some of the stuff you do overlook and don't get hung up on the first time you watch it, like the delegates having the same name as their star. If you watched it enough times, you'd be like, this is kind of silly. So I think for a lot of reasons it's not quite the best of the best, but it takes a shot. It punches above its weight.
Absolutely. With all 6 of its arms, it punches you square in the jaw. And, definitely, I don't want do not talk down Princess Cassandra Zabi. I would that all Doctor Who stories could rise to this level of just appealing to you visually and making you laugh this much. I think, very, very good achievement, even if it was Brian Hale sort of mashing up 2 of his plots that he'd pitched to Barry Letts, and kind of this odd-shaped hybrid of a story emerging from it.
Alrighty, well, that was the Curse of Peladon, everybody, and it is now time for us to lift up our time ship from the crevasse it fell into. reactivate the randomizer and find out where we're going next.
Yes, pausing only to retrieve our randomizer from the bottom of a cliff where it just fell off and we just didn't give a damn because we were so focused on season 2. We enter our TARDIS, our random.org device. I've given away what powers it. Yes, it is random.org, the website. Technically, it's called the Executor, but random.org is a website that gives you access to atmospheric noise for a random number, rather than algorithmically generated random numbers, which are not really random, as any Galactic Federation delegate will tell you. Its computers are just not very good at creating random numbers. So we create it truly randomly. Peter's sitting at the other part of the controls. That is the codex. That's the list of all of the Doctor Who stories that we have not yet done. Pete, have you entered the reality war into the codex? Even though we haven't seen it yet.
Yes, all the stories that Doctor Who has done to date, including Wishworld and the Reality War, which is we're counting as one story, are now in the codex, and there are now 321 Doctor Who stories.
Oh my god!
Open codex.
Oh my god! At some point, we're going to have to figure out if we're halfway through yet.
We are not.
Through us here.
they kept making this show for a while.
Damn it!
And they're going to stop for a while, so maybe we'll catch up again.
Yeah, I'm kind of grateful for that. So
we've done quite a few. Yeah, the number that we have left to do is 178.
178. I feel sure that we've been there.
We have.
Getting a little deja vu on that number. But yes, okay. Well, I will plug in a number I plug in 1 and 178 on random.org, and we will generate a random number in a second that will correspond to the story we're going to do next. But first, we'd like to issue some requests of the randomizer. We like to prostrate ourselves in front of a comedy statue of the randomizer and say, "Oh, mighty randomizer, please do not let us enter this or that Galactic Federation of stories. Please let us do this." And I got to say, please, randomizer, you might think it'd be very funny to take us to a season 2 story right now, a Shooty Gatwa season 2 story. Right. But I think let's just please give it a rest. Like often I say, let's go somewhere. Let's do something, and obviously, Monster of Peladon would be fantastic to go to right now. Or Empress of Mars, let's get the Alpha Centauri trilogy. But just please, I know you thought it was funny when you took us to Flux, and then you took us to Church on Ruby Road, which was the most recent one there. Please, no, we want to do a really cold take, okay?
Yeah. So yours is let's do a really cold take. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something that's cold. Right. Let's do a cold case.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting now that we have this huge buildup of stories we have not done at the end of the codex, because the only one in Shooty Gatwa's entire run we've done is Church on Ruby Road.
Correct.
Even though we've done hot takes on everything, we haven't done them properly for the podcast. There's that gap, and there's one sort of strange. There's two other strange gaps. There's one in Matt Smith's run. So most of Series 7 is just virgin territory for us. And there's also kind of a decent gap in Troughton in season 4 or 5. So okay, so what I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna tell it to go or avoid any of those spots. I was impressed with the creativity around the aliens on this one. So I'm going to ask for more of that. Find some aliens, but not some no-name boring aliens. Get something creative and interesting.
Creative aliens. Wow. I would say that the randomizer also has the opportunity to complete the David Troughton stories. Because we've done War Games. He appears briefly in a pilot as a pilot. Obviously, he's the professor in Midnight. He's also in Enemy of the World.
Yes, I've heard that. I think it's a very minor role, but he's in there. And he's
so
also in War Games, you said,
Yeah, which we've done. So that would, if we did Enemy of the World, that would complete the David Troughton quadrology, I guess.
So that's an unofficial request.
Yeah,
That's our.
I'm dropping that
roulette wheel.
breadcrumb. I'm just like, hey, Random, if you wanted to, you have opportunity to do something very amusing.
All right, let's see if it does it. What's happening in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Run for your life.
37. Oh, thank you.
My.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
What do we got?
It is the Android invasion.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
We're back at Tom Baker.
From Robot Revolution to Android Invasion.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. Not the androids of Tara. Does this give us a bingo on Tom Baker and androids in the title?
Probably. Yeah. Not robots though, because we haven't done robots of death. But Android Invasion. There are creatures in this one. And to my recollection, they're a little creative. So very, very cool. Excellent. Android Invasion.
It listened to both of us. That never happens.
I believe this might be the last appearance of Unit until much later in Classic, like in the Tom Baker era. So this could be
you know what this is? This is the first story in which Sutek is wrapped around the TARDIS.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It's right after Pyramids of Mars. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll be looking out for Sutek.
Come next time, folks, when we take on the Android invasion. Folks, this has been great. This is Pull to Open, the real random version. It is a podcast, and podcasts are great things to subscribe or follow on whatever service you happen to be listening to us on. Of course, beyond just reviewing the show, beyond following us on social, beyond following yourself, the absolute best thing you can do to help support the show is share it with a friend. So we would be eternally grateful if you did that. We will always be grateful to Martin West for our music. It always makes us sound just a little more professional. So thank you, sir, for that. And we will activate some robots, pour ourselves some ginger beer, and be back at you in a couple weeks for the Android invasion. Yeah, it will definitely be us and not Android copies of us. So don't listen to anyone who says otherwise. We are the real thing. We are Pull to Open. We'll see you next time.